The Amazing Spider-Man is over 10 years old, and it has been very interesting to see how the public opinion for it has shifted over the years. It is not technically the most well-written film, but much like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, it holds a place in many people's hearts. When I think of this film, I think of how terrible the handling of Lizard was as the villain, in my opinion, a complete failure and the worst Spider-Man big screen villain. I actually really like Lizard from the comics and cartoons, so it's disappointing. This film also had a hard time separating itself from the shadow of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, probably because the reboot was too premature, being that it had only been 10 years since Raimi's first film. Since Spider-Man 2, Sony's really always been awful with the brand, and it is clear that they do not really care about the quality of their films, but true light shines through when the creatives involved with making it are passionate. The writers were not given enough freedom or time to write something great, but it could have been great. You really could have told a different kind of story when involving Peter's parents in the narrative. There's so much potential there. This approach initially intrigued me, but of course, it went nowhere. Andrew Garfield is probably the best Spider-Man. You can tell when watching that Garfield loves the character, and his version of Peter Parker is a bit more like a punk. He's probably the most comic accurate. His Spider-Man is more witty and fun. Some people might not like that, but his dedication to the role is so clear. I love 500 Days of Summer, so whilst director Mark Webb fails to inject any excitement into the action or villain plot, the romance here is just incredible, far beyond the Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire romance in Raimi's films, and I love that. Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is a masterstroke of casting, and her chemistry with Garfield cannot be beaten. It is really what saves the movie. I actually quite liked the suit from this movie, which a lot of people don't like. I usually dog on the choreography of the action sequences in this film, but the fight in the school, you know what, it's honestly pretty good. And probably the best Stan Lee cameo of any Marvel movie. The script isn't great, but the cast is, and I will never forget when this movie came out. I was about to turn 15. I literally cried when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 was cancelled. I was so invested in that franchise. I still want that film. Those films meant so much to me, and still do, but nevertheless, once I saw the first teaser from this film, I was on that train. It looked dark, it looked intriguing, it looked like a totally different approach. I actually went to see it twice in the cinema. I had only done that once before at the time with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Once the second film came out, I pretty much discarded both films and continued to miss the Raimi trilogy, but I have made peace with the whole series now and love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, even if I don't love his films. I have an appreciation for their place in the canon. I loved Spider-Man No Way Home, and honestly, if they made an Amazing Spider-Man 3, I would watch the hell out of that movie. Please make it. Honestly, there's a whole pile of money that is just waiting to be made on a Spider-Man 4 and an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Sony needs to get on it.